Okay, this is like
Ooh, I now know who Anonymous Coyote is.
there is a document attached to this meeting. Please go ahead and sign the.
We should add a happy Friday to the agenda, Sambhav. Just so everybody knows that they've gotten to the end of the week.
Okay, so the first item, which is start the YouTube live stream, is done. I don't see any new faces. So let's jump right into status updates. Um, there's a new release of libcnb that's pending release on this last bump pipeline pull request. The new release adds the ability to create exec helpers in libcnb, which was a missing feature for a long time, and I think libpack implements it. I'm not sure if Packet also has support for exec but that's something we added. Um, and we got that as part of the release version 1.24. Um, I think that would bring us to parity with everything in the build pack spec. And we will probably be starting working on the V2 improvements and adding any other utilities soon after. Cool. Anything else from anyone?
Just, is there a V2 plan at this stage, or let's not say plan, but a wish list at least?
There is. Uh, so there is this. There's this redesign document which has a bunch of things broken down into what the like the various additional packages we want and what to go where. There's this issue which tracks the core functionality, not including the utility, which I believe is all checked off the list except for that pull request that Pine has around removing layer contributors and replacing them with just normal layers. So I think the main changes to the core API would be just that, like removal of layer contributors. And I think everything else is covered in terms of the V2 core spec. And then we'll be starting off with the other additional packages that we have, uh, testing utilities, and um, I still don't have a plan around like the CLI library and CI/CD parts, and I think we need more discussion with the rest of the team on how to deal with some of those things, given that the CLI parts of build-back authoring are currently in pack, and the CI/CD parts are currently maintained by the distribution team. But I think the next big thing that we should probably get started on is either testing or utilities. They're both fairly independent from each other, so we can also possibly parallelize. But yeah, I think I I don't know which order we want to do things in, and I would also be curious about what Paqueto's requirements are on some of these things, given that they're probably the largest users of libcnb. I don't know if Heroku uses libcnb. I've seen a couple of their build packs use libcnb, but I'm not too sure because they use the Rust version for a bunch of their build packs instead, or the Bash version.
In terms of requirements, I think that Dan would be a better person to talk about the direct requirements that they have building on top of libcnb directly. I know that that's something that we want to investigate in Packet, and it's one of the things we're hoping. One of the reasons we're hoping to be able to merge that V2 branch in, like the layer contributor dropping sooner onto the V2 branch. That way we can start experimenting and doing some conversion with like the libraries that we have, and seeing what kind of overlap we have and what kind of utilities we'd be looking for as well.
I am happy to merge that pull request to the version 2.0 branch because it won't affect the existing release. I'm not sure if that would be good enough to get you started, or like we actually want to cut a V2 release.
I think just having a branch to point it at for now, because at that point, then we can start developing our own sort of POC V2 Packet branch. Just having something that isn't a PR would probably be beneficial.
If I think it would be great if Daniel could approve that as well, and then I'm happy to merge it into version 2.0.
Yeah, I can do that.
Been investigating a bit about whether Go has some nice way of having different kinds of structs and having the ability to dynamically run certain methods based on certain field in the struct, but doesn't look like there's a good backwards compatible way to do that. So I guess that would be a breaking change. In terms of Ryan's like comments on how it would be possible for users to move on to the new layer struct instead of layer contributor one, the only real issue I've seen is around some tests. Like there are like some tests that can assume some build outputs, and testing the contributors separately, but I think it's still doable. It would be nice to have like some experiments and documentation on how to move or migrate easily.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I feel like if we're going to be allowing breaking changes, we should probably require a like migration doc update or something with that breaking change that bare minimum lists what's changed and what people should look for in their code to change.
Yeah. But yeah, again, given that version 2.0 isn't, I'm assuming no one is going to be using that and relying on it. So I'm hoping we can just merge that, and if we change the interface in the future to that branch to make it more compatible with whatever experiments we conduct. Given that assumption, I think it's fine to merge that in. Is there any naming convention that's there in Go to indicate like an alpha or experimental version of or a branch? Cool.
One of the things that I think we had talked about in the Paketo meeting, some of the stuff in libcnb has some, I guess, like plays on words for things like the logging package is called Poet. It's kind of boring just calling it logging or something like that, but I was curious what people thought about that. Sometimes I feel like these like plays on words can be hard for people getting started with something to know what that means. And then obviously if you're not a native English speaker, I imagine that could be even harder yet. So I'm curious what people think on that.
As sad as it makes me, that's probably the right thing to do, which is name our packages after what they actually do as opposed to something that's a pun of what they actually do. But yeah, it does make me sad.
Yeah, I don't want to suck all the fun out of the room, but
So that would probably be a larger breaking change, but
yeah, that's the downside.
I think we can make that. We should probably make that decision on some issue or discussion on GitHub rather than in this meeting.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I was curious just if it was something people would entertain. I can open a thread.
Yeah, given that it's V2, and there will be breaking changes, I think it would be nice to figure out all the breaking changes we do want to make and have proper justifications for them.
Cool. I could start a thread for that.
Is there anything else? There's the effect stuff, or is that forgetting if that's lip back or libcnb? Oh yeah, that's lip back. Yeah, I guess Poet is the only thing in libcnb that's provided as a utility.
Yeah, it's pretty minimal.
Yeah.
I think one other area where I'd like to see a naming change is in the layers objects. You can get into some weird situations where it's like layer.layers.layer, and it like really doesn't make a lot of sense. If that's something that maybe we can explore some alternative naming conventions so that when you're using the API, it's a little more ergonomic. I think that might be an improvement.
Yeah. Makes sense. Would that be an issue even after we remove layer contributors? Does it ever happen that like
I think it's just the way that the structs and the packages are named. I'll have to try to find some examples and write that up in an issue so we can kind of document how it can get a little weird.
yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think that's it from my side in terms of status updates.
I was going to ask about in the working group meeting yesterday, they were talking about the utility build packs, RFC, and assigning that to the BAT team. It seemed like they were going to make that change. Did I hear that correctly?
Yep.
Okay.
I think it's also on us, by the way. I think it's mainly you and me driving that change, Daniel, because we
Yeah.
were comfortable taking on that responsibility. Otherwise, the implementation team was going to get assigned that.
Yeah, I like that change. I'm curious, like what I'm not sure how far out that RFC is from being accepted though, and you know if it should be something we should start planning for now, or if we've got time still.
Yeah, I think one of the things that RFC is still figuring out is how to deal with this whole stacks removal. There was that other point around making build packs generic enough to be run on any possible stack. But with the removal of stacks, I think we also want to reevaluate that that clause in the RFC. I think Joe is gonna update that.
Okay.
And
do we know what the first target build pack would be once this is?
I would assume some of the project descriptor stuff, and Joe particularly wants a profile lead build pack to replace the functionality that would be removed as part of Emily's changes on merging in that entry point RFC, where
Okay.
we get rid of shell in life cycle.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I assume that we would probably be limiting those build packs to using libcnb. Does that seem like the plan?
I think it obviously depends on the operating system and what's the most easy language to maintain these build packs in across a bunch of targets. I know Terrence has some opinions about Windows build packs being written in Go because Go makes some assumptions about paths that don't particularly work well with Windows and some other things. But I think for the Linux ones, so far Go seems to be the most appropriate language to write build packs and the most compatible, at least.
Yeah. It's the most complete library that we have available to it, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I guess we can talk more about that as it gets closer, but just curious.
Yeah. That's it for status updates. For RFCs, let me just check if there's anything new on the. Is this additional exportable layers RFC, which like Stephen, Terrence, and I had a separate discussion on around how this could be improved and made compatible. I'm not sure if this is something of interest to the rest of this group, otherwise we can skip it. Apart from that, all the other RFCs are old. Okay. Assume that's no. And lastly, we have standing docs issues items. I haven't really gotten a lot of time recently to work on the learning side of things. Okay, why is that not working? Weird. Sorry. Something about Zoom stopping me from opening that. But we have a lot of stuff, I think, still on there. Yeah, just a reminder that if anyone here can make any pull requests to add these to the documentation, that'd be great. Probably the environment, I think the biggest piece of information we're missing right now from the build pack authoring guide is how to set environment variables. You don't specify that anywhere. Like not a single way of doing that. No profile D, no exec D, and not even the normal end layers stuff. I think that's the biggest one. And was this from you, Forrest?
Yeah, this is the same one from like last week, so I think it just got copied up. I'm still waiting for Terrence or someone to come through and just tell me what fields are actually required in build pack TOML, so that I can go in and create an actual issue or a pull request on the spec that'll mark things as required.
I believe it's just the build pack ID and the API version.
I think that you're right. But I have to actually go through and verify that. And then Terrence said that he was going to take a look. So I might just bump him on this issue.
Cool.
But yeah, I don't have anything else to add for this.
I think that's it for our agenda. Is anything else that people want to talk about?
I don't. Thank you, Sambhav.
Cool. Can do then. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks.
See
You too. Bye-bye.